Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So I want to start this video out with saying I generally don't like flower boxes, but for some reason, these flower boxes on this Dress Shop Dollhouse really intrigued me, and I wanted to try to make some flower box arrangements that would be removable. So I decided to create the flower arrangements on some little pieces of foam core, and I cut them in these thin strips that would sit down in the flower box and look natural, but be removable for when I change to another season. I have to make the dollhouse dress shop be able to look like Christmas and decorate for winter time because you can't have blooming flowers in the flower boxes along with icicles and snow. Now, these are just remnant pieces of various different floral stems, and I just put them in at random using the colors that I really like. Take note of those purple ones. Those were left over from my dad's memorial. Those are some of the same flowers that I used to make Marguerite's bouquet. Now, definitely take note that even though I'm sticking them down into the foam, I am using Gorilla Wood glue to secure them because I don't want them to come loose. I want to be able to lift this out of the flower box as one unit. Now here I'm going over the red flowers to just add a little bit more color to them. Although they were already red, the color looked a little faded. And so I just wanted to make sure that the red looked truly red and nice and bright so it complemented the other colors in the arrangement. Now another thing I did to add a little bit of realism to the little arrangement, I painted the foam core black so that it would look as though it was actually soil. I originally tried to use some tea to sprinkle on top of the glue, but it got pretty messy, and I just decided that that process wasn't necessary for this particular arrangement, although I do use tea in my arrangements when I do potted plants in my dollhouses. I was really pleased when the matte black paint dried because to me it gave the illusion that there was soil under the flowers. And here it is all in place. I think they look very natural. I think it looks very pretty. I think it looks believable. And so I'm really extra tickled because I have never decorated flower boxes because they're really not a thing for me, but I am satisfied with how this turned out. Now here I want to show you with what I did with the walkway portion of the front of the dress shop dollhouse. Now I did use my egg carton treatment along the walkway and I put it on the top of the cardboard that I used to extend the floor line of the base of the dollhouse. Now, after I added my egg carton, I actually painted it. Now, I will leave a link in the description for how I do that process for stones and bricks from egg carton. And I didn't have any joint compound, so today I used something a little bit different. I used wood putty for my grout, and I pressed it in all of the spaces, and here I am just wiping off the excess with a baby wipe to make sure it's all clear before I add my touch-up colors. And I think the wood putty worked out really well. It's the wood tone, so the color of it is nice. So I just wanted you dolls to see what I did for the walkway portion of the front of the dress shop. I just wanted to take a moment and take care of a couple little details for the outside of the house. So, dolls, I found this really cute little piece of wood, and when I first saw it, the first thing I thought about was an address plate. Now, I had ordered these little numbers and letters in one of my orders from Minimum World. So I punched out the numbers that I wanted to use for the address, and then I tried to make sure that they would actually fit on the little piece of wood the way I wanted them to, and it worked out fine, dolls. So now it was time to paint it. I was originally going to use wood stain, and then I decided that I wanted that gold to really stand out, so I opted to paint it the same matte black that I used for the soil in the flower boxes. So I gave the little address plate 2 coats of the black and allowed it to dry. Once it dried nice and solid, I was ready to add my 3 little digits. Now when you're adding your numbers, dolls, take your time, kind of plan it out before you get started. You definitely want to pay attention to spacing the numbers and having them equal distance from the top and the bottom And I used my pointed tool and a toothpick to help me get the glue on and arrange things properly. Now, dolls, you already know I didn't measure, but I did plan out how I wanted it to look in the end. So always start with the end in mind and try to use the smallest amount of glue possible. So in addition to the address plate, I knew I needed to add doorknobs to the front door. I was so amused when some of you all thought I had forgotten the doorknob. And no, I hadn't forgotten. I just didn't want to pull it out prematurely and then knock it off and lose it because I'm still working on construction. I generally don't like to bring out my little fine details like this until I am almost ready to install them. So I did find my glass and add it to the door again since I've stained it. And now I'm just trying to determine where I wanted to position the doorknob before I glue it on. Now, although the doorknobs are really, really cute, I love the aged look. I did feel like I wanted to add a little bit of black and antique gold to them to kind of give them a little bit more dimension. So dolls, I always want to encourage you to take the time to add the extra details, age it a little and make it look worn. To me, those are the type of things that really make a miniature scene amazing to look at. Because when you see certain things, it gives you the impression that there are signs of living. It makes you actually question reality, which is always fun to me. I'm looking to make sure my glass is nice and clean and clear. I want window shoppers to be able to see all the lovely things that Aunt Bess and Aunt Janie have for sale in the dress shop. Now, I was getting ready to add the doorknob, but I forgot that while I was cleaning the window, I hadn't glued the glass inside the door frames. So I added a dab of glue to keep that secured, and then I went on to determine where I was going to add my doorknob. And after I determined where I wanted it, I glued the first doorknob in place and allowed it to dry before I attempted to add the other doorknob to the other side of the door. Because whatever you do on one side of the door, you need to do it on the other side of the door. They need to match and line up. Now, while the first doorknob was drying, I just was admiring my little address plate. I was really tickled about how it turned out. So now that I feel like the first doorknob is stable, I'm holding it up in place so I can see it on both sides. I just kind of propped it up with a chair so I could see and you could see clearly what I was doing. So here I am adding some Gorilla Wood glue to the back of the second doorknob. And then I carefully lined it up with the one that's already set on the other side. So again, you want to pay attention to where it is on the door and where the knob and the keyhole is. Again, you just want to line it up so they look symmetrical, identical, mirror images. And just so you know, Gorilla Wood glue works really well because it gives you a little time before the glue begins to set up. So let's allow that to dry. So I found these lovely pieces in my leftover random supply box. Now, dolls, I don't want to promote hoarding things, but always keep your spares or your remnants from previous projects because sometimes they're just what you need for a new project. Now, these are some of my remnant building supplies, and some of these things were left over from the Rooming House Dollhouse project. And then I realized that I have a few spare window pediments, and I think they would look really nice on the outside of the dress shop. I kept digging in the box and realized that some of them were already previously stained, but they're a little bit darker because they're the same tone that I use for the rooming house. But that's okay. I'll use those on the side of the house. But the bare ones I'll stain with the same Jacobean stain that I use for the door of the dress shop. Now let's go see how it all came together. So here we are at the front of the dress shop. I am so pleased with how this is turning out. It looks, so there's our door with the doorknob, the address plate. I think that looks really good. And I really think the window pediment complements that of the door. Now, dolls, if you've enjoyed this video today, definitely let me know in the comments. Also, like, share, and subscribe. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.